Organized crime, the Rico Act. A short documentary by Makale'a Jackson.
Arnie, you ought to have better sense than to hire a couple of outside yaps, especially bad shots.
Come on, what is it? Let's have it.
Arnie, you're through. You hire these mugs, they miss, now you're through. If you ain't out of town by tomorrow morning, you won't never leave it except in a pine box. I'm taking over this territory. From now on, it's mine.
When people think of organized crime, they think of original gangsters like Al Capone, or maybe even movie icons like The Godfather, Don Corleone, or even Goodfellas, one of my all-time favorite movies. Some people look at mob bosses like John Gotti. Organized crime actually started in the United States during the 19th century when cowboys would band together and rob stagecoaches, they would rob banks, and they would rob just people in the Wild Wild West. These were the earliest forms of organized crime in the United States. At the turn of the 20th century, as America began to receive more European immigrants, gangs began to form just based on nationalities alone. So Irish gangs, there were Italian gangs, there were African American gangs, there were Mexican gangs. And this is a problem that still plagues America to this day. You know, we have all these different gangs and all these different races and their individual gangs. So this is something that we still see commonly today. So around the turn of the 20th century, we get an influx of Sicilian, Italian immigrants that come into America, and they begin to form what we know today as organized crime. They start La Cosa Nostra, which is Italian for this thing of ours. And basically, the Italian immigrants would spread out throughout the United States, and they would set up these organizations, and they would partake in illegal activities. Some of these illegal activities included drug trafficking, kidnapping, extortion, racketeering, money laundering, even murder. By the 1970s, organized crime had such a hold on the American society and American communities that the government had no other choice but to take a stand. President Nixon knew that he had to take action immediately. So in 1970, he signed the Organized Crime Control Act.
In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive. I have asked the Congress to provide the legislative authority and the funds to fuel this kind of an offensive.
President Nixon is ultimately using this act to get rid of La Cosa Nostra, or to get rid of the Italian mafia and the hold that they have on the American communities. The Organized Crime Control Act of 1970 is most famous for the Section 901A, which is the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which is better known as the RICO. The RICO is a United States federal law that provides for extended criminal penalties and a civil cause of action for acts performed as part of an ongoing criminal organization, which in regular words basically means it is illegal to continuously commit crimes as a part of a organization. They actually come with a complete list of crimes, which we will get to here in a second. The RICO Act can carry up to millions of dollars in fines and up to a life sentence in prison. Now it is time to talk about some of the rhetorical analysis patterns that I noticed in the RICO Act. The first pattern that I noticed is repetition. So, repetition is very, very prevalent in the RICO Act. They actually use repetition a number of times. The first time that they use repetition is with the word racketeering. They want to be very clear on what crimes they're talking about. These crimes include, like I said, drug trafficking, kidnapping, extortion, prostitution, money laundering, embezzlement, fraud, etc. They use racketeering to clearly define who will be prosecuted under these laws. And all of these racketeering activities have rose to prominence during the 1960s and 70s. So they use repetition to make their goals very clear and define who they are targeting and going after. The next rhetorical analysis pattern that I noticed was a relationship. So they talked about the organized crime's relationship and how they operated as a legitimate business. They used business related terms in the legislature, such as embezzlement, business, commerce, shipment, taxes, and money laundering, to show how organized crime operates like a legitimate business would. They are showing America the dangers and why we should rid our country of these organized crime members by saying that they are stealing from the economy. The Organized Crime Control Act actually stated and says that organized crime is responsible for billions of dollars that are plaguing the American community. President Nixon uses this relationship in his legislature to show how organized crime is being ran and how it is taking advantage of the American economy. In conclusion, I just want to say that I really enjoyed this assignment. Organized crime should be eliminated in the United States, and I hope you really enjoy my presentation. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your summer.